They handed over my cane, patted my hand, and whispered to the staff that I was no longer sharp, but I had already made an offer on the building. They chuckled like they'd pulled something clever, trading me for freedom, slipping keys into each other's pockets while I quietly counted every step. I nodded. I smiled. I let them think I mistook their pity for kindness. They thought I was melting like old ice, fading like wallpaper. They saw a soft chair and slippers. I saw spreadsheets. Their visits were brief, awkward hugs, loud voices, eyes scanning for the exit. She won't remember, I heard one whisper. But I did. I remembered it all. I remembered birthdays I baked through, money I loaned and never saw again, documents they rushed me to sign when my glasses were conveniently missing. I remembered who unplugged the freezer and blamed me for the spoiled meat, who told the lawyer I was too tired to decide. I remembered what they forgot. I built this family, brick by brick, scar by scar, and they left me in a room with a plastic flower and a locked window. That's fine. Let them relax. Let them think I sleep all day, that I cry for them. Let them think this is the end of the story. They don't know I took pictures of every paper, that I recorded every phone call, that I keep a journal under the cushion. No, I wasn't confused. I was calculating. They think I'm a chapter that closed, but I am the author, and I haven't even started the last page. I remember the smell of burnt toast in the mornings, the little feet running across the cold kitchen tiles, their tiny hands reaching up for breakfast while I balanced my coffee on one hand and the overdue bills on the other. My husband was already gone by then. Hart gave out before his 40th birthday, left me with 2 toddlers, a house full of promises, and not a penny to spare. But I never let them see me cry. Not once. I stitched the holes in their socks, turned soup bones into meals, and ironed their little shirts so crisp you'd think we had a maid. We didn't. We had me. And I was enough. I worked nights cleaning offices, came home before the sun rose, woke them up with a smile, packed their lunches with little notes, even when my fingers ached from scrubbing floors all night. I learned how to stretch one paycheck like it was 3, used coupons like they were gold, made birthdays magical with dollar store balloons and homemade cakes. They never knew we were poor. They only knew they were loved. When they grew, so did their dreams. College applications, tuition payments, first cars, startups that needed seed money. Just a little help, Mama. Just until I'm on my feet. I never hesitated. I sold the land my father left me, cashed out what little retirement I had, co-signed loans I barely understood, backed their dreams, covered their debts, protected their pride, became their excuse. They stood tall in boardrooms while I counted pennies at home. But I was proud. My children were rising. That's what mattered. I didn't take vacations, didn't buy new clothes. My car rattled and wheezed, but it got me where I needed to go. I stayed quiet when they forgot holidays. I smiled when they were too busy to visit. I told myself they were building their lives just like I taught them. I sat in my little kitchen, warmed by the thought that someday, when things slowed down, they'd come back. We'd have long talks over tea. They'd ask me how I managed it all. And I'd finally rest knowing I raised them right. The years passed. The calls grew fewer. The visits shorter. The conversations clipped. Can't talk long, Mama. Big meeting. Running late, Mama. I'll call you tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into next month. Next month into nothing. My birthday came and went. No calls. No cards. No knock on the door. Just silence. Then, one day, they all showed up. Smiles too wide, voices too sweet, paperwork in hand. It's just safer this way, Mama. You deserve to be cared for. They called it love. I recognized the signatures. Cold, sharp, calculated. Like frost on glass. I backed their dreams. I covered their debts. I protected their pride. I became their excuse. And now I was their burden. It started small, like a faint draft under a closed door. Easy to ignore if you didn't look too close. At first, the conversations simply shifted. They stopped asking my opinion. When they came over, which was already rare, they spoke fast, half listening, glancing at their phones. You shouldn't worry about the business anymore, Mama. Relax. Enjoy yourself. They said it like a gift. Like taking away my voice was kindness. I smiled, laughed even, but inside something tightened. The grandchildren, my baby's babies, used to run to me, chatter filling the room like music. Now, they paused at the door, glancing back at their parents for permission. They were careful, polite, coached. If I asked about school, I got rehearsed answers. If I asked about their parents, I got silence. I tried to shake it off. Maybe they were just growing up. Kids get distant. But it was more than that. They were told to be careful with grandma. Don't stress her. Don't confuse her. She's not as sharp lately. Sharp. That word cut deeper than they knew. I heard them whisper it in the kitchen when they thought I was asleep. Heard them on the phone with lawyers, with bankers. Heard my own name spoken like a fragile thing, like a problem being managed. One afternoon, I found my oldest at my desk. My paper spread out. Just helping organize, Mama, he said too quickly. The next week, my online banking passwords were changed. For convenience, they explained, flashing those bright smiles that no longer reached their eyes. We'll handle it, Mama. Less for you to worry about. The gas bill was paid late one month. A small thing, but I always paid on time. Always. I asked about it gently. My daughter patted my hand. You must have forgotten, Mama. That's why we're here. To help. Forgotten. The word echoed in my head. Forgotten. They spoke to me like I was drifting. Like I was slipping through their fingers. But I was standing right there. My mind sharp as ever. My heart breaking with every carefully chosen word. I tried to remind them. I'd baked their favorite cookies. Peanut butter for Michael. Snickerdoodles for Grace. Oatmeal raisin for Sarah. The way their faces lit up as children. The way they used to beg for just one more. I laid them out on the table, fresh and warm, hoping to pull them back to me, hoping to remind them who I was, what I had given. But they barely noticed. A quick thanks, Mama, as they scrolled their phones and spoke in low tones. Business tones. Legal tones. Then I heard it. The sentence that landed like ice water down my spine. By next year, we'll be in charge of everything. Said with a chuckle. Like it was already done. Like I was already gone. I stood in the hallway, hidden by the corner. My hands trembling, my breath caught in my throat. I wanted to scream, but my voice stayed locked behind my teeth. I wanted to believe I misunderstood. But I didn't. I heard what I heard. The draft under the door had become a cold wind. The house I built was no longer mine. I baked them cookies that night, and I placed each one on the plate with a steady hand. My heart cracked, but my mind stayed steady. Watching, listening, preparing. They told me it was just a trial stay. Just for a few days, Mama. Make sure you're comfortable. See how you like it. I smiled, nodded. I trusted them. My own children. My own blood. They packed my small suitcase like they were helping me prepare for a vacation. Folded sweaters, comfortable shoes. A photo of the grandkids slipped into the side pocket. My daughter kissed my cheek and whispered, "You'll love it here." I felt the warmth of her breath on my skin, and the chill beneath it. The building was clean. Too clean. The air smelled like bleach and old paper. Soft music hummed through speakers in the halls, like a lullaby for the forgotten. Smiling staff greeted me, their voices syrupy sweet, their eyes blank. I was shown to my room, beige walls, plastic flowers on the nightstand, a window that wouldn't open. "You just relax," they said. "We'll take care of everything." When they left that first evening, I sat on the edge of the unfamiliar bed, clutching my handbag. I reached inside for my keys. They weren't there. My house keys, gone. My car keys, gone. My phone, missing. I stared at my empty hand. My fingers curled into a fist around nothing. I called for the nurse, asked about my things. She smiled too wide. "Your family has everything safe for you, dear. You just rest now." I waited for morning, waited for my children to return. But they didn't. Days bled into each other. The staff treated me kindly enough, but kindly like you'd treat a child who asks too many questions. My mail stopped coming. When I asked, they told me it was being handled. My bank accounts? "Your family is managing those, sweetie. Don't worry." My bills? All taken care of. My house? "Oh, honey, Everything's under control. The clock on the wall didn't tick for me. Time stopped when they left me there. I sat in that room like a doll propped on a shelf. Clean, dressed, useless. Visitors came for others. Smiles, balloons, fresh flowers. My door stayed closed. My name unspoken. When I asked to make a phone call, they gently redirected me. Let's wait until your daughter visits again, okay? But she didn't. Neither did my sons. My family, who I carried through the storms of life, now treated me like a loose end they had finally tied up. I tried asking one of the aides about my home. She looked away. That's not something I'm allowed to discuss, ma'am. The silence around me thickened. The truth whispered between the walls. My home, my accounts, my independence shifted, sold, redirected. All while they smiled and said it was love. My house was listed before I even unpacked my suitcase. Quietly, efficiently, like I never lived there. They came one last time. Not together. Brief, distant visits. Soft hands on my shoulder. Empty reassurances. They didn't meet my eyes for long. You're safe here, Mama. And then they were gone. Doors closed softly behind them. Footsteps fading down long, polished halls. I sat in that quiet room and felt everything inside me harden. I was not confused. I was not fragile. I was not gone. I was watching, and I was waiting. The silence became my cover. They thought they'd buried me in it, but silence is where I do my best work. I wasn't screaming. I was writing. Each day I watched. I listened. I let them think I was fading like old paint, but my eyes never dulled. The staff whispered freely around me. People say more when they think you won't remember. I remembered everything. The facility was tidy on the outside, but I saw the cracks. New faces every week. Staff quitting. Shortcuts taken. Medications delayed. Paperwork left half-filled. I made note of every small thing. Every shift schedule change. Every late meal. Every patient left waiting too long. I started keeping records in my head first, then on scraps of napkins, tucked beneath my mattress, hidden under my seat cushion. The aides thought I was jotting recipes. I let them believe it. I listened to the other residents. Their children didn't visit either. Their complaints were gentle, like old songs sung too many times to hurt anymore. But I listened differently. I heard the patterns. Neglect disguised as protocol. Corners cut for profit. Bills padded with services never delivered. I saw their financial statements once, left in a folder outside the administrator's office, just long enough to scan and memorize. Names, vendors, EIN numbers. I pretended to squint at the page like I was confused. But I wasn't confused. I was conducting due diligence. Nights were the best. Quiet halls, humming lights, shadows long and soft. I would sit in the armchair by the window and replay everything in my mind. Every document they shifted into my children's names. Every account they froze. Every lie dressed as concern. I started drafting my own little plan. Not in anger. Not in panic. Just clear, cool calculation. The kind of thinking you do after decades of managing everything alone. And then, one afternoon, I made my first call. Quiet. Careful. To my late husband's old business partner, Richard. We hadn't spoken in years, but his voice warmed when he heard mine. I was wondering when you'd call, he said. I told him everything. I knew he was still a silent investor in the company that originally built these facilities. What my children didn't know was that I still held a few tiny, forgotten shares. Forgotten by them. Never by me. I need you to send me some records, I whispered. He did. The emails came slowly, hidden behind my cheerful requests for bingo schedules and family newsletters. Each document he sent filled in the gaps. Vendor fraud, billing irregularities, employee lawsuits quietly settled. I printed what I could, hid copies behind the old puzzles in the community room cabinet. The staff thought my failing eyesight was the reason I always asked for printed copies. I smiled and nodded as they handed me the pages. I let them believe I was grasping for scraps of memory. They didn't see the sharpness behind my eyes. I stopped reminding my children of my birthday. They had long since forgotten anyway. But I remembered everything else. Account numbers, property transfers, notarized signatures that didn't match. EINs that tied companies together like threads in a web. They thought I was confused. I was conducting due diligence. The quiet storm inside me grew stronger each day. Not loud, not raging, just steady. I knew exactly what I was building, brick by quiet brick. And when the time was right, they would feel it. Not with screams, not with angry words, but with the weight of the truth they thought was buried. I wasn't lost. I was preparing. It started with one letter, then a second, then quiet meetings held behind careful doors. I found Gloria through an old friend, sharp, quiet, and without patience for games. She wasn't cheap, but I had planned for that. The small accounts my children forgot about. The bonds my husband left in a lockbox. The tiny trust fund my mother once started for me with a few gold coins. I never touched them. Now they became my war chest. Gloria reviewed everything I had collected. Her eyes scanned each page without emotion, but I saw the corner of her mouth tighten with every violation, every false signature, every calculated theft. "We're not going after your children directly," she said, folding the file shut. "Not yet. First, we take the house they tried to bury you in." She filed the paperwork under the name of a quiet little holding company, one with no ties to me. The facility was already bleeding money. They were desperate for investors. The board barely asked questions when the offer came through. The numbers were good. The shell company looked stable. They signed off with their usual arrogance, thinking it was just another private group buying into failing senior care real estate. While they passed contracts back and forth, I kept playing my part. I smiled during my physical therapy sessions, nodded through cognitive evaluations, let them write mild decline in my chart. I sat in my beige room while they walked past, never suspecting that the woman they thought was lost was writing their ending. The whisper started before the ink was dry. Staff murmuring about new ownership, policy reviews, surprise audits, files being pulled. Gloria made sure word spread carefully. The new owner is very involved, the administrator told his team with forced cheer. She'll be visiting personally. They didn't know her face. Not yet. The day of the acquisition, I dressed myself. No nurse, no aide. I wore the navy suit I had kept folded for years, saving it for a day I thought might never come. My hair pinned up neat, simple pearls at my neck. Gloria met me at the front. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. They walked me in through the patient door, I whispered to her. Today I walk out through the executive suite. The automatic doors slid open. Staff froze when they saw me. Some whispered my name under their breath. The administrator paled as I stepped onto the marble floor of the main office. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Gloria handed him the official documents with quiet authority. His hands trembled as he read. "Effective immediately," she said. "This facility is under new ownership." I stood behind her, calm, watching. His eyes darted between us, searching for answers that wouldn't come. I let him feel that confusion, that helplessness, the same I felt when they stripped my keys, my phone, my home. But I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. My presence was enough. I toured every hallway that day, spoke softly to the residents, called them by name, asked about their meals, their medication, their care. The staff who had once handled me like a fragile object now stood straight, nervous, respectful. They whispered behind their clipboards, wondering who I really was. I was many things. A mother, a widow, a victim. But today I was the owner. By sunset, I stood at the window of my new office, the office that once belonged to the people who silenced me. The same window I used to stare at from below, through the locked glass of my room. Now I looked down from above, calm, quiet, in control. They thought I was gone. They thought I was fading. They forgot who built them, who taught them to fight, who taught them how to win. And quietly I took it all back. The house they stole was the first to go. The home where I raised them, where I carried groceries up broken steps, where I patched leaking pipes and painted nursery walls by hand. They listed it under my name, signed it away behind closed doors. But they didn't expect I'd still hold the silent strings. Through Gloria, I forced a quiet sale. A clean developer offer. Cash. Final. Gone. The house was dust before they even realized it hit the market. They didn't call to ask me what happened. They knew better. They simply watched as their inheritance vanished into someone else's foundation. Next came the accounts. The web of financial games they played, so boldly under my nose. Every account they rerouted, every investment they managed for my benefit unwound. Frozen. Seized back. Legally airtight. Not a loophole in sight. Gloria was meticulous. Every document ironclad. Every account scrubbed clean of their access. They tried calling banks, using their old power of attorney letters. But those have been revoked, publicly filed, notarized, and stamped in bold. Irrevocable. Elder financial abuse carries weight. Heavy weight. The reports were filed quietly but thoroughly. County, state, federal. Elder abuse isn't just bruises and broken bones. It's signatures stolen under pressure. It's silencing someone and calling it love. They left a paper trail, and I followed it to the very end. I never had to raise my voice. The system they trusted to protect them was built for people like me. The quiet ones they assumed would never fight back. Then came the letters, each one typed carefully on thick linen paper. Their names written properly at the top. Formal. Cold. No dear. No love. Just fact. Your equity has been revoked. Nothing more. No explanations. No anger. Just finality. The weight of those words did more damage than any shouted curse. They tried calling after that. The voicemails came first, shaky voices filled with forced sweetness. Mama, we need to talk. Mama, I think there's been some confusion. I let the messages pile up. My phone stayed off. The day they came to the facility, my facility, was the day it all became real for them. They didn't come together. No, they arrived one by one, expecting to speak to management, expecting to fix things, expecting still to control the story. I was already there, sitting quietly in the corner of the front office, my chair angled just enough to watch them file in. I wore soft gray, my hair pinned neatly, a cup of mint tea resting in my hand, its steam curling gently into the air. The administrator they once manipulated stood stiff beside me, voice calm but firm. Mrs. Carlson, he said to my oldest son, gesturing toward me. May I present the new owner of the facility? His voice didn't tremble, but theirs did. I sipped my tea as their faces drained pale, pale as the tea swirling in my cup. Their mouths opened, but no words came. Just stammering breaths, quick glances between one another, the math racing behind their wide eyes. How? When? They hadn't even realized how fully I'd slipped away from their grasp. I said nothing. I didn't need to. My silence weighed more than any speech. I simply watched them. The same way they once watched me fade behind locked doors and patient files. They had signed every page that buried me. I signed every page that resurrected me. Now I sit on the board of directors, a quiet force behind the company they once thought was my prison. We're expanding. New facilities with real care, real oversight, real dignity for people like me. People who deserve better. I attend meetings with investors and regulators, my voice steady, my hands calm. No raised voices. No threats. No scenes. I didn't yell. I bought it. And I made sure they would never hold power over me again. Not with signatures. Not with smiles. Not with empty promises wrapped in family titles. My revenge was never loud. It was precise, elegant, complete. The call started softly, like cautious knocks on a locked door. At first, it was emails. Short, nervous. Mama, I think we need to talk. Mama, there's been a misunderstanding. As if this was all some harmless confusion. As if years of calculated theft and silence could be undone with a few polite sentences. I read them. I didn't reply. Then the voicemails came. Longer. Desperate. Mama, you know we love you. We only wanted what was best. Their voices cracked under the weight of their own guilt. They tried to sound sweet again, like children hoping to escape punishment with soft apologies. I let the messages pile up. My phone never rang out loud. I didn't need to hear their rehearsed regret. Soon, they started blaming each other. The siblings who once stood shoulder to shoulder against me now whispered different versions of the story. I didn't know she was signing those papers, Mama. That was all Michael's idea, Mama. I only agreed because they told me you needed help, Mama. The more they scrambled, the quieter I became. They sent flowers to the facility. Expensive arrangements, cards full of empty words. I told the receptionist to donate them to the hospice wing. There were people here who could still use some beauty in their final days. I didn't need plastic gestures. I needed none of it. One afternoon, Gloria sent them each a final letter. Brief. Professional. Any further attempts at contact will be considered harassment and handled accordingly. The tone was cold. Righteous. The tone they earned. I changed my phone number after that. Not out of anger. Out of peace. The door had closed. They simply didn't know how to accept it. I still walk these halls. The same halls where I once sat waiting for permission to live my own life. But now I walk freely. Confident. Purposeful. I host training sessions in the very room where they once placed me. Small and voiceless. The aides sit in rows, taking notes as I teach them about dignity, patient rights, and the silent cruelty of family betrayal. They listen closely, because I've lived what I teach. They told me I couldn't live alone. I say softly, pausing for a breath, letting my words settle in the room. Now I employ 237 people. The staff nods. Some smile. A few wipe quiet tears. They know who I am. Not the fragile patient they assumed. The woman who built something powerful from her own ashes. My children still live their busy lives, somewhere out there. I hear whispers from mutual acquaintances. Lawsuits filed between them. Businesses struggling. Family gatherings hollow without the center that once held them together. But that's no longer my concern. They made their choices. I made mine. I sit in my office sometimes late in the evening, sipping my mint tea, looking out over the facility grounds. The sunset touches everything in gold. And for the first time in many years, I feel something simple. Not anger, not pain, just peace. They may still be calling, but I don't pick up. The mornings are my favorite now. The light slips softly through the tall windows of my garden suite, warming the small patio where I sit with my tea. The jasmine vines climb higher each season, their blossoms heavy with sweet perfume. Birds chatter in the hedges like tiny gossipers, full of stories I no longer need to hear. For the first time in years, my days belong entirely to me. No schedules set by others. No phone calls demanding my attention. No voices telling me what's best for me. The world is still busy out there, but my world here is quiet and full. I spend my afternoons reviewing proposals, overseeing new programs. This little company, this facility they once thought would be my final stop, has grown, expanded, flourished, not because of greed, but because I made space for women like me. Women who were told they had nothing left to offer. Women discarded by families who whispered about their fading usefulness. I've hired them into positions of leadership. Directors, advisors, mentors, gray hair, strong voices. They come with resumes written not just in degrees, but in life, in survival, in wisdom forged from years of being overlooked. They sit beside me at board meetings now, steady and sharp. We've built something different here. A place where nobody gets locked behind silence again. Some of my money goes farther than this building. Quiet donations, always anonymous, to women's retirement shelters, legal aid funds, education programs for older women starting over. No plaques bear my name. I don't need credit. I only need to know that some other woman, sitting somewhere with an empty checking account and a heavy heart, might find her door still open because of what I've built. I don't answer to the old titles anymore. Not grandma. Not dependent. Those words were used to shrink me once, to cage me. Now I am simply myself, fully, entirely without apology. Sometimes I still think about my children. I don't wish them harm, but I no longer carry their choices on my back. They were my beginning, but not my ending. The grief of what they did no longer poisons me. It simply lives quietly, like an old scar, visible, but no longer tender. I learned that peace isn't forgetting. Peace is knowing you survived. The aides here often ask where I find my strength. I just smile, sip my tea, and quietly think to myself, I wasn't their burden. I was their lesson.